What's up, guys? Thanks for tapping in. This episode of Moving Weight Podcast, we're going to go down to the street level into how Cuban homegrown weed became a thing in Florida, where it came from, why it hit so hard, and how the game ran from Miami out to the rest of the state. All right, picture Miami. Right after the Coke era cooled down, the late 90s, early 2000s, the neons are still buzzing, roosters strutting in little Havana alleys like they paid the mortgage, Abuela blasting Celia Cruz from the front porch on Westchester, Ilea mechanics with grease on their hands and salsa in their hearts, Cuba flags in the rear window, Saints on the dashboard, family first, cash only, everybody's hustling. The old smuggling routes, they were hot, Coast Guards everywhere, feds watching the ports. The water, it got rough. So a new hustle had to grow, literally. Instead of fishing the weight out of the ocean, people started growing in the suburbs. Nothing flashy, no speedboats, no shootouts on the causeway. Just quiet houses with blinds shut tight and air conditioners humming like a choir. They called it Krippy, or Dro, Miami Krippy, Sticky, Cuban weed, mango, and even loud. Nothing like the brown bricks that people were used to crushing up with a Bic lighter and suffering through the joint. This was clean, bright, and a different league. And the streets noticed, and they paid for quality. They bragged on it. The word, it spread fast. So how did it start? It starts the same way as a lot of Miami stories start, with cousins, with uncles, with a friend of a friend who knows a guy. Cuban families came here with hustle in their blood and a Rolodex in their heads. They know real estate, they know construction, they know electrical, they know how to keep a low profile, they know how to circle the wagons and keep business in the family. One cousin signs a lease, another cousin is the gardener. Somebody's Theo works HVAC and can make a room feel like a winter in August. Somebody else is good with money and keeps the books in their head. The vibe is simple. Keep it quiet and keep it clean. Pay your bills on time. Don't be the block's headache. Blend in. You'd see the signs if you knew what you were looking for. Always the same SUV in the driveway. Always the same shades down in the window. Grass outside, trimmed like it's the front lawn of the Biltmore. No parties, no toddlers, no sneakers hanging on the wires. Just that steady hum of cold air moving and a sweet skunky whisper that the wind carries when it wants to snitch. The network grows city by city, Little Havana to Hialeah to Sweetwater, Sweetwater to Westchester. Even Kendall gets a taste. Doral, it's quiet, but it's connected. Homestead is far enough and cheap enough. And once Miami is locked and the tentacles reach out, I-95 north, Florida Turnpike straight up the spine, Alligator Alley, across the bottom of the state, coolers and trunks, duffels in the back seat, college towns love quality. Tourists, they love quality. Everybody loves quality. Orlando hears about it. Tampa hears about it. Naples hears about it. Gainesville hears about it. Tallahassee and Pensacola? Don't get me started. If you were in Florida in those years, you either smoked it, smelled it, heard about it from a friend of somebody who did. Let me walk you through a day in the world. Sun's up. Miami's already sweating. The lease cousin makes sure the lawn crew came on schedule. No HOA problems, no nosy neighbors. The gardener shows up with a cafecito and a paper cup, nods to the Ring camera, and keeps it moving. He doesn't talk much. He wears the same hat every single day. He's the type that notices a screw missing on a doorknob from 20 feet away. Inside the house, it's winter. Vents push out cold air, fans whispering, filters doing overtime. The garden checks what needs checking, Not too much, not too little. He's not there to reinvent anything. He's there to keep the rhythm. He moves like a barback in a crowded club, quick, quiet, and efficient. Afternoon hits. The numbers cousin takes the drives up to Palmetto. He runs the cash like it's a grocery store. He's calm. If you look at him, you would think he was a loan officer picking up empanadas for the office. He pays who needs to be paid. He keeps the receipts in his head, not in his phone or a piece of paper. He knows which convenience store's camera point where. He's not paranoid, but he's aware. On move day, that's a small parade. You don't call it in, you don't celebrate, you don't bring friends. It's just a couple of trusted hands, a couple of coolers, some grocery bags, and a route that avoids showing off. Everything is errands, everything is family, everything is see you later. Quietness is the whole point. How did the Cuban crew make it scale? Simple. They treated it like a business. No cowboy energy, no Instagram flex, no custom plate. They bought boring cars, shook hands at bar mitzvahs and barbecues, helped a neighbor fix a fence after a storm. They built goodwill one favor at a time. When an HOA president likes you, you're invisible in the community. Another piece? The timing. Florida hit a real estate fever. Houses flip like pancakes. Investors buying 3 or 4 at a time. Vacancies everywhere. You could tuck a quiet house into a busy neighborhood and nobody blinked. Mortgage companies, they're out of state. They weren't paying attention to you. The property manager is answering 500 emails a day. Nobody driving by to see if your blinds are closed or not. The chaos was cover. And the Miami Cuban community had the one thing that multiplies everything: trust. Trust is social credit that you can't fake. It's what lets the cash move without contracts. It's what keeps the cousins in line. It's what makes a phone call at midnight sound like Sunday dinner. Dale, we're good. Dale, we move tomorrow. Dale, don't pass by today. Now, the streets aren't fairy tales. Pressure builds when money piles up. Every success story brings shadows with it. Robbery crews started sniffing around. People used the word lick like it was a joke. It's not. Doors get kicked in, people get followed. That's when the code matters. You lock in your circle. You don't gossip. You don't argue at the gas pumps. You stay boring in public and very careful in private. Cops, they aren't asleep either. Neighbors, they talk. Power companies, well, when you got a $700 bill, they raise eyebrows. Hurricanes roll through and the entire grid hiccups. When the lights come back on, some houses sing louder than others. Task force get born from whispers. State boys link up with local boys. Names get put on whiteboards. Arrows, they connect across county lines. And still, for a long stretch, it kept moving. Because the demand was louder than the sirens. People wanted clean, people wanted strong, people wanted something they could show off in a mason jar and brag about like a new chain. Krippy changed the way Florida smoked. It raised the bar. Krippy brought the gas. It made the old brown brick weed look like a punchline. So let's go to Street Economics 101. When quality goes up, price goes up. When word of mouth is good, risk is funded. You didn't need billboards. You didn't need a brand. Your brand was the silence of consistency. You kept problems off your porch. You kept everybody paid. And the market, y'all know it stayed hungry. I'll give you a story that's told in the streets hundreds of times. Call him Nico, highly born. Parents came over on a raft and built a life from dust. Dad, he works 2 to 3 jobs. Mom cleans houses and runs the house like a CEO. Nico grows up shy, but sharp. He's not a tough guy. He's a listener. The kind of kid who drives grandma to the doctor without being asked. He starts in the car game. A lot boy. He washes rims, runs plates to the tag office during lunch. He watches how paperwork moves. He learns patience. An uncle taps him in, not with fireworks, with a driveway. Keep it clean, mijo. If a neighbor calls, you handle it. If a truck needs to come by, you don't get curious. Weeks become months, months become a rhythm. Nico learns the art of not being seen. He learns that the loudest money is the weakest money. He learns that barbershops are where empires get exposed and ruined. He keeps his mouth closed and his schedule open. He eats at home and tips heavy when he's out. People remember that. Tipping heavy buys silence in 1,000 languages. Distribution? It wasn't rocket science, but it wasn't clumsy either. Florida is a long and skinny state with predictable areas. 2 hours north puts you in new markets. 4 hours north puts you in new politics. Across Alligator Alley gets you a whole new clientele with golf memberships and boats. Folks called, "Hey, you coming down?" You answered, "On the way." Never sent a text, never sent anything that you wouldn't read out loud in front of a judge and your mother. That's the rule. Every run felt the same. Take the slow lane, use the middle toll, don't make friends with the clerks. Smile at the old ladies, wave everyone in. You are a ghost in a beige sedan. You are a family man picking up arroz con gandules. You're a wallpaper. Be wallpaper. And then when the heat turns up and somebody gets sloppy, somebody gets loud, someone owes you a favor, a neighbor moves out and a new neighbor moves in with a badge tucked under a polo, there's a knock, there's a whisper, there's a name you haven't heard in 2 years that suddenly won't leave your phone. This is where you see the Cubans' discipline again. You shut it down. No drama, no bon voyage party. You patch up the drywall, you clean the floors, and you move the furniture back to where it was. You call the landlord about a small leak like a normal tenant. You walk out with nothing in your hands and everything on your mind. You ease your footprints with boring. Just a regular life. People ask, why did the Cuban crews run it so well? And for so long? The answer? It's a cocktail. I guess you could call it immigrant drive. Family networks, trade skills, low ego business decisions, and a city that rewarded the art of staying low. Add Florida's geography and a hunger for quality, and you've got the perfect storm. But all storms end. Task force reports are filed. News cameras love front doors getting kicked in at 6 a.m. Mortgage fraud gets its own spotlight. Power theft gets its own hotline. The media learns the slang and they shout it from the rooftops. Like they discovered it. When the heat reaches a boil, smart people pivot. Some walk away, some get caught. Some, well, they wait for the next chapter. The next chapter in Florida was ballots and dispensaries. New laws, new players, new money. Suddenly, the same neighborhoods that side-eyed skunky Breeze are bragging about CBD. Doctors sign forms. Suits, they're writing checks. The hustle gets a lobbyist and a logo. The irony writes itself. Ask the old heads about it and they'll shrug. They'll say, we were early. We took the risk so that you could take the credit. That's America, papi. And they'll sip their cafecito and go back to their day jobs because that's how Miami survives. By finding the next thing. Not crying over the last one. Let's not romanticize it though. There were victims. There were home invasions. There were kids that saw things that they shouldn't have. There were neighbors who didn't sleep well for years because of random cars pulling into their driveway by mistake. There were fires, and there was a lot of court cases. It wasn't a movie. It was a grind with consequences. But there's also truth you can't erase. Cuban homegrown weed changed Florida's weed culture forever. It raised the standard. It put out the trash. It built an identity around quality that still echoes in the way people talk about flower today, even in the legal shops. People still use the word Krippy like it's a password. They still tell stories about cousins' cousins who had a house that snowed inside in July. They still laugh about that one uncle who always knew a little too much about air conditioners. Do you want the biggest lesson the streets took from this era? It was discipline. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who never needs attention. Boring wins. Schedules win. Family wins. You can be a ghost with a fridge full if you're patient. You can be a king for 12 months and a cautionary tale forever if you're loud. Pick one. Another lesson, Florida will always be Florida. Hurricanes will come, grids will fall, neighborhoods will change. Politicians, they always switch sides. But the hustle and the heartbeat is still the same. It will find seams, it will work angles. It turns scarcity into opportunity, and opportunity into groceries. That's not just Miami. That's the immigrant story. That's the Cuban story. That's the Florida story. So when you hear someone talk about Cuban homegrown like it was just a fad, smile. They weren't there. They didn't smell those summer nights on Southwest 8th Street when the breeze told all the secrets. They didn't watch the suburbs turn into quiet little factories. They didn't sit at a plastic table behind a bakery at 6 a.m. and watch envelopes change hands like it was nothing. They didn't see how polite power can be when you want it to last. The product was elite. The risk was real. The impact, it was huge, and the cost was heavy. If you know, you know, and if you don't, now you do. This has been the Moving Wave Podcast. If you rocked with this story, like, subscribe, and drop a comment with what city you're tapping in from. Tell us your error. Tell us your slang. Tell us if you remember when Krippy hit your town like a summer storm. And to the Miami OGs and the Cuban families who turned pressure into process, this is your chapter. We just read it out loud. Stay safe, stay smart, and stay humble. We're out.